You know, Charles, I don't know if there's any attack of the 75-year-old woman music, but of course our theme today is based on the horror science fiction classic Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, but we actually have an extremely important guest with us today. We're joined by Gordon Chang. Hello, Gordon. How are you?
I'm fine, Jason and Charles. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for coming on our show, and thanks for the excellent work you've been doing for many decades, trying to alert the unschooled and even the schooled to the great dangers of hooking up and enabling China.
Well, yes. I mean, history is going to look back at us and say, why did we fuel a regime that was attacking us? This is just insane.
It is absurd. And we're doing it across the spectrum of elites, whether it's academics, business people, manufacturing companies, banks, investment firms. Everybody is conspiring to weaken this country and to make the elites inside China ever stronger and in a position to keep their boots on the necks of the Chinese people.
Yes. And this is, there's a number of reasons for that. Part of it is after the end of the Cold War, we didn't think that the form of governance of those we traded with really mattered. So we could trade with dictatorial or totalitarian regimes, and we thought everything would be fine. But China has taught us that that theory is disastrously wrong. But in the meantime, as you point out, there have been a lot of elements in our society that have gotten rich off of China and see continuing streams of money. So they're continuing the relationship, even though it's clear that China is maliciously attacking the U.S.
I think, Gordon, I think that you and I are rough contemporaries when going through school and university and stuff like that. And I certainly remember back in the mid-'70s and early '80s that even the most left-leaning schools were urging the students to think open-mindedly about fresh ideas and new concepts and whatever. And we see today a 180-degree shift where I think on the mainstream universities and the schools, the people who give you the chevrons on your way up the corporate ladder, these people are canceling anybody who disagrees with you, with them rather, and trying to enforce uniformity and their version of orthodoxy on the American people, on the Western Europeans, on anybody who thinks they need China. Why do we put up with this?
That's a great question. You know, I don't do domestic politics, but I do think, though, that we are starting to see a reversal of the tide. That was clear in the Virginia and the New Jersey gubernatorial elections. The American people just realized that the orthodoxy is wrong. I do believe that in 5 years from now, we will have gotten past this. But this is an extraordinarily dangerous time for us because we're, for instance, the core of our society is the First Amendment. But the First Amendment has very few adherents in academia, as you point out.
Yeah, that's for certain. Well, you, I believe, spent a number of years of your career in Hong Kong before the handover and during the handover. Isn't that true?
I moved to Hong Kong in 1981. I left in 1991, so I spent 10 years. Handover was 97. In 97, Lydia, my wife, and I were living in Shanghai because we moved there in 96 and we left in 2001. So I remember watching the handover ceremony in the Hard Rock Cafe in Shanghai at the Portman Hotel.
Wow. And how far off the intent of the treaty, the renegotiation of the treaty, would you say we now are in 2022?
Well, China has, first of all, abrogated the treaty by saying it no longer applies, which it clearly does. The 1984 Sino-British Joint Declaration is very clear in its terms, and it does give Britain rights to enforce it. But clearly there was the attempt to have one country, two systems, a high degree of autonomy. But since the national security law went into effect, clearly what we're seeing right now is Beijing taking full control of Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is just basically indistinguishable now from the rest of the mainland. So there's no longer one country, two systems. China is now in command.
It's just outrageous. I mean, I say this as just a visitor, a once frequent visitor to Hong Kong. It was one of my favorite cities on earth. I don't think I'll ever be able to go back there so long as the People's Liberation Army and the Communist Party is in charge in the mainland. And to think that we're sitting here and saying what they did to their own people in Hong Kong, what they're doing to their own people in Hong Kong, is something that should redound to their credit, that we should be more interested in stronger ties with this regime, knowing what we know, as this unfolds in front of us. It's just outrageous to me.
Yeah, and it's also, what they did in Hong Kong, what they do to their own people as they move back to a Maoist system. And of course, what they've been doing to minorities and to religious adherents. China is committing genocide, other crimes against humanity, atrocities that are comparable to those of the Third Reich prior to the mass exterminations of 1941. And we know that Uyghurs and Kazakhs are actually dying in those camps because China actually built a crematorium between two of those camps recently. So the only difference is that the Third Reich was killing Jews and others in a mass extermination campaign. China is killing Uyghurs and Kazakhs in a campaign which doesn't involve mass exterminations, but does involve death in large numbers. And the international community is basically all right with that.
Wow. What is their beef with the Kazakhs?
Well, right now, the Kazakhs are a Turkic minority like the Uyghurs, and Beijing is trying to eliminate any sort of minority identity, whether it's Tibetans, Uyghurs, Kazakhs, or others. And so this is a policy that is applied throughout China. Now, in Xinjiang, what they call the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, and in the Tibetan Autonomous Region, both horribly misnamed, by the way. But in those two regions, their coercive measures are worse than they are throughout the rest of China. But those policies are in effect everywhere. The idea is to make everybody Han Chinese, and this is the definition of genocide under Article 2 of the 1948 Genocide Convention.
It's outrageous, outrageous. And then on the same hand, you see we have a president whose family is delighted to get richer off Chinese money. And we haven't yet had the type of exploration into exactly how Hunter Biden's fund got put together and how it got greased through the various oversight provisions that should have taken place. I mean, if this, forget the Trump family, because they're incendiary, anything they might do, of course, is a disaster in the mainstream press. But if this were the Bush family, or you pick a name, you'd have nonstop teams of Washington Post reporters fighting with New York Times reporters to get to the bottom of this, and yet we don't.
Yeah, and the New York Post reporting during the 2020 election was, you talk about cancel culture. Social media platforms canceled the New York Post. But we're now finding out that what the Post reported is accurate. And eventually, I think this will have consequences because what we're seeing is the Biden family enriching itself. The Trump family did business in China, but they were doing business in other countries as well. What Biden was doing was influence peddling and could very well be actual corruption. But the types of transactions that Hunter Biden was involved in with regard to China don't happen in the absence of corruption.
Exactly. Now I know with John Batchelor, have been kind enough to have me on talking about different issues. And one of the issues that you have been very prescient talking about is the fact that the Chinese system could very well collapse eventually. You predicted that a long time ago. You bring it up constantly. And now we're watching this supply chain implode. How bad do you think things might get in the near term here as the Chinese wrestle with this new emergence of something, whether it's COVID or something else, and as the world wrestles with a too stretched out supply chain?
A lot of smart people in logistics say that, oh, these supply chain disruptions will disappear, end of this year, 2023. But I actually think it's going to get worse. And the reason is that China has a zero COVID policy, which means that they don't tolerate any transmission of the disease. So they will lock down entire cities if they've had a couple of cases, as we have seen recently. In Xi'an right now, that central Chinese city of 13 million, people haven't been able to go out for food, to buy food since December 27th. So Wow. It shows you. The problem for China right now is it's got Omicron, a highly transmissible variant. And when you have a zero COVID policy and you're not moving off of it, it means that they're going to be shutting down larger and larger portions of the Chinese economy and society. So I think things will get worse. Just one detail here. We talk about 100 ships off the twin ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, and we think that's a lot. But in early November, there was something like 493 ships loitering off of China's ports waiting to be loaded. Wow. 493.
Wow.
Well, Gordon, I've got a question. I've got a question, Gordon, because we have heard from the CDC and the WHO, and it's depicted on this Johns Hopkins COVID map here, that less than 5,000 people in China have died from COVID-19 since it started. And it's being explained away simply as, China's lying about the numbers. But I mean, how could that be? Because we also see similarly low numbers in places like Laos, Vietnam, Thailand. Are they all lying, or is there something happening that goes beyond the obvious?
Yeah. Well, for about a year, and the anniversary, I think, is like something like the 26th or the 27th of this month, China has reported only 4,636 deaths, and that number has not gone up in a year. There are a couple of reasons, I think, for this. First of all, China is not telling the truth about deaths. This is just impossible. But I think that their deaths are lower as a percentage of population than the United States, because they do have the zero COVID policy and their lockdowns are draconian. The other thing is, we know that the SARS-CoV-2, the pathogen causing COVID-19, actually affects different ethnic groups in different ways. And so it's possible that Taiwan, for instance, which has been lauded for its low death and infection rates, I think benefits from the fact of DNA. Just to give you an example, my wife, Lydia, is Hong Kong Chinese. And when she was growing up in Hong Kong, during flu season, locals weren't concerned about flu. They saw that flu disproportionately attacked the British in Hong Kong. So it could very well be that SARS-CoV-2, which is sort of flu-like, is actually a type of disease which goes after Caucasians more than it does Chinese people.
That makes sense.
Well, and I'm further intrigued by that because you mentioned earlier about the whole Sino-British Pact and turning Hong Kong back over to China, and Wikipedia talks about, I'm very ignorant of the history in this area, and forgive me for that ignorance, but the Wikipedia article obviously speaks about the opium wars. We've been hearing for years about Chinese fentanyl flooding the United States. You're now raising the very valid point that COVID-19, or any disease for that matter, could genetically target or perhaps be genetically engineered to target a specific population. And we still don't have good answers to the questions as to whether that happened here or not.
We know that for a half decade, Chinese military researchers have been publicly writing about what they call a new type of biological warfare of, quote, specific ethnic genetic attacks. Wow. And that means pathogens that will leave Chinese people immune, but will kill everybody else. We don't know if they've succeeded in that, but we know they constantly write about it, which means that they're working on it, which means that, there's all sorts of things that could be. And part of it, not out of the realm of the possibility. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying it's actually occurred, but it could very well be that SARS-CoV-2 was engineered to attack non-Chinese. This is something that we need to ask about. And what we have a problem in our country is we're not asking these questions, which is not to say that China is doing this, but it is to say we have an obligation to find out if they are, because if no other reason, both China and the United States are parties to the Biological Weapons Convention, which prohibits biological weapons development.
Yeah. And Gordon, sorry, on your television appearances back, I would say from 2017 during the Trump years, you were all over the major stations helping people try to understand what Trump was concerned about, what the United States was concerned about as Trump fought to open up trade and to reduce trade barriers and stuff like that. And then along came the problems in Hong Kong. Some friend allied to the Chinese suggested that maybe the U.S. was stirring up those demonstrations. I don't know. And then we get towards the tail end of the Trump presidency, and then suddenly this COVID thing happens. And has anybody gone back through time now and laid out a timeline and tried to understand the toing and froing of that whole period?
There's a couple of things that we know and a lot of things we suspect. So, for instance, we Americans, when we talk about this, we talk about the origins of SARS-CoV-2. Was this engineered? Was this a zoonotic transfer? I think that there's about 95% assurance that this was an accidental escape from a lab. But there's something that we know 100%. We know 100% that after this disease got out into Chinese society, that Chinese leaders deliberately spread COVID-19 beyond their borders. While they knew that this was a highly contagious bug, they were telling the world it was not transmissible human to human. At the same time that they were locking down Wuhan and surrounding cities and other cities throughout China, meaning that they thought lockdowns were effective, they were pressuring other countries to accept arrivals from China without travel restrictions and quarantines. You put those two things together, and they're not the only things, but you put just those two things together, and it shows that Chinese leaders deliberately spread this disease, which means that 5.5 million deaths from COVID-19 outside of China are murder. I mean, it's just, I don't think there's any way around it.
Sounds like an act of war to me.
It sure does.
Well, certainly is an act of war because we've lost 850,000 Americans to this disease. 850,000 Americans.
So, Gordon, is this regime in China a regime that we have to accept will always be there, that Xi will cement his control and will never be able to get back to a place of more openness and hope? Or is there some hope that, in fact, this and other factors may trigger a fundamental alteration in the structure of China?
Well, there's always hope, Charles. I'm absolutely the last person on earth to talk about this because I've got timing wrong. I mean, I wrote a book that I thought that the Communist Party would fall by the middle of 2011, the coming collapse of China. But what we are seeing right now are signs of fragility throughout Chinese society. And where you talk about COVID-19, the inability to handle that, a stagnant economy, the debt crisis, worsening food shortage, a depleted and toxic environment, and basically a China that is on the verge of the steepest demographic collapse in history in the absence of war or disease. And of course, there are other things. But you put that together, and I think these are crises that China cannot handle. It can't handle some of these by themselves. It certainly can't handle all of them together.
I think you're right. And I think back to the post-World War II period where people of my father's generation who fought in the war had an attitude towards Japan and towards Germany that just took, I'd say, at least 30 years to change the minds of people who had seen the horrors of that war firsthand. And similarly, I think by these malign actions of China now going over a number of decades, people like me and perhaps like you and Jason were not soon going to rush back to work with a Chinese overlord.
Well, there's a couple of things there. Yes, I think that's right. There's a change in the American attitudes. We see this from Pew surveys and the rest. Although our elites are firmly embedded in the Chinese Communist Party, it seems, Americans, they just think that China is dangerous and we shouldn't be having these economic relations. And I hope that eventually this makes it clear through the ballot box. But there's something else here, regardless of how we think about this. But China is pushing the United States away. It's pushing other countries away. Xi Jinping is closing off China. Chinese rulers have done this periodically, certainly throughout the 2 millennia of Chinese imperial rule, plus also the first years of the People's Republic itself. And it's always ended in disaster. And we're seeing many of the same signs today. So Xi Jinping is just basically trying to undercut foreign companies in China. He's trying to eliminate foreign influence. He's doing all sorts of things that I think are self-destructive.
I don't know if this is your area or not, but I'll ask the question anyway. I mean, how do you explain, because I can't, the elites in this country embracing China? China could do no wrong. On the other hand, Russia is just evil incarnate. I mean, how do we explain that?
Well, first of all, after the end of the Cold War, we believed that, as Francis Fukuyama wrote, that history had ended. So we didn't believe that the form of governance mattered anymore. And we also believed that China, with trade and contact with the world, would evolve. So that belief has been firmly embedded in American academia. It's also embedded in the mind of Joe Biden. So there's that. Plus, there's also the economic motivation that we talked about. And it's also, there's one other factor here. And this is not just the problem in the United States. It's a problem with democracies in general. Democracies in general, as de Tocqueville talked about, try to avoid war, which is a good thing. But they end up, as we saw in the 1930s, they end up creating the conditions for war, which Britain and France did. Britain and France could have stopped the Third Reich in 1936 when Hitler remilitarized the Rhineland. We know from the German archives that the Germans would have retreated, but Britain and France decided to let it go. They didn't do anything about the absorption of Austria. They had the Munich Agreement, and then when Hitler violated the Munich Agreement, they didn't do anything about that either. So democracies generally tend to do this. We Americans could have prevented the Korean War if Dean Acheson had publicly drawn America's Western defense perimeter between the border of the two Koreas. But instead, he left South Korea out of it. And that convinced Kim Il-sung and Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong that they could invade South Korea and we wouldn't defend it. And if we think that's a long time ago, and sorry for going on, but
no, please.
1990, our ambassador to Iraq, April Glaspie, acting on the instructions of James Baker, answered Saddam Hussein's question when he asked, "What do you Americans think of Kuwait?" And April Glaspie said, and this is almost a direct quote, "We Americans have no interest in intra-Arab disputes." 8 days later, Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. What do? Of course, we defend it. So we Americans have a lot to answer for in terms of allowing bad actors to do things which take down and destroy peace.
Absolutely, Gordon. That's a theme on this show. I mean, if we look, I don't know if we want to start in 45, we could go back earlier, but you look at that period, 45, 48 forward, the number of boneheaded decisions and mistakes that elites in this country have made, and the pain and suffering that that's caused across the world, but across the farmland and hinterland and rural America here for the people who fight our wars, is just, it's almost impossible to count.
Yes, and I'll give you one more example. Early 2012, both Philippine and Chinese fishing vessels were crowding around Scarborough Shoal, which was generally considered to be part of the Philippines because it's very close. It's 124 nautical miles from Luzon, which is the main Philippine island. And then Kurt Campbell, who is now the Asia czar on the National Security Council, brokered a deal between Manila and Beijing for both sides to withdraw their craft. Only the Philippines complied. It left China in control of Scarborough. The Obama administration didn't want to do anything about the deal that they themselves put together And they thought, oh, they didn't want to antagonize China. But what happened was Obama, in very real sense, empowered the worst elements in the Chinese political system by showing everybody else that aggression worked. And what happened is that just soon after that, China started to militarize the islands in the Spratlys. They then started an intensified campaign of pressure against Japan in the East China Sea with regard to the Senkaku Islands. And they also put pressure on Second Thomas Shoal and other features in the South China Sea, which are generally thought to be part of the Philippines. And by the way, in November of last year, the State Department actually had to threaten the use of force against China because of its belligerent and provocative actions around Second Thomas Shoal. So it shows you that we're teaching the Chinese to be aggressive.
Well, what would you say, and I know we're very close to running out of time with you, but what would you say to those supposed experts who throw this canard that I've heard across mainstream press? You have to understand that the history of China is a history of a benevolent country that generally has not expanded outside its borders. They don't have global dominance objectives. What would you say to those people?
Well, first of all, Chinese civilization started around the Yellow River. So it's expanded quite a lot. It is now also taken over Tibet, which is not considered to be Chinese. We were talking about this Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. That was independent. So China has been very aggressive and warlike. And right now, it's got its troops deep into Indian-controlled territory in Ladakh. And it's pressuring, of course, Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, and other countries with territorial claims thousands of miles from its shores. So history does not validate that proposition. Henry Kissinger talks about China, not invading others. He propagates all these Chinese lines that he gets from Beijing. History is going to judge him poorly.
Yeah. How much money has Henry Kissinger made in his lifetime, and from what clients?
It's interesting.
I don't know how much money he's made, but it's obviously a lot. But we do know the identity of the client, and that is China.
Yeah.
Was Kissinger involved in Pierre Trudeau's first meeting with Mao?
I don't know the answer to that question. I would tend to think the answer is no, but
doesn't it
there
look
are
like
people
these
who
photographs were taken within seconds of one another? The same lamps, the same suit on Mao. I guess that doesn't tell us too much, but the lighting in the room it looks like they're in the same place.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that Trudeau was going to do this on his own. Henry Kissinger or no Henry Kissinger.
With him.
Just one last question for you, Gordon, and thanks so much for being so generous with your time. I know you also have done a lot of commentary on North Korea, and now we see reports of the North Koreans launching new missiles. What do you make of that?
Well, this is hypersonic glide vehicle. Well, this is like the most sophisticated technology anywhere. And the question is, how did the North Koreans develop it? The least likely explanation is that the North Koreans developed this on their own. The most likely explanation is they got it from China, or maybe Russia, but probably China. Last Wednesday, the Biden administration imposed its first sanctions on North Korea. They sanctioned 6 North Korean individuals, 1 Russian individual, and 1 Russian company. Now, these parties were involved in taking technology and materials sourced in China and sending it over to North Korea. So how come the Biden administration doesn't sanction China? So, yeah, of course, the Chinese are going to continue to proliferate nuclear weapons technology and missile technology and all the rest of it because we're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Can you tell I'm angry?
Rightfully so, Gordon. And thanks for piping up and being so vocal for so many decades in so many forums. Tell us a little bit where we can find you.
I tweet at Gordon G. Chang, GordonGchang. My website where I archive my articles for free is www.gordonchang.com. I write for Newsweek, The Hill, Gatestone, 1945, other places. But you can find that on my website.
And you do speeches as well, I think.
I try to get myself before audiences, try to get myself on TV, because these are critical issues at a critical time.
Well, thanks again for all that you do, Gordon. Regards to your wife and family. Stay safe and stay warm. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Charles, and thank you, Jason. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast.
Anytime, Gordon.
Thanks for joining us, Gordon. Wonderful to have you on. There we go, Charles. Gordon Chang, another excellent appearance from a really intelligent and insightful guest. Thank you for inviting Gordon on the show.
He's a wonderful man, and he works his heart out. He's probably one of the hardest working men in show business on so many different channels and podcasts. And we didn't mention he's co-hosting, we'll do it now, for John Batchelor on CBS Eye of the World. He started out, that is to say, John was on NBC radio for many years, and I think I started with him in around 2009 or 10, roughly. And I've had a chance to be on many times, thanks to Gordon, actually, talking about a range of subjects, economics, politics. But really, what a privilege to interact with him.
He's got a ton of knowledge.
He sure does. So let's go back into the world of the great art department.
This one I really enjoyed. You know, I have to tell you something. I haven't seen this film, so it's a rarity for me to be so enthusiastic about a movie poster for a movie that I'm not like a particular fan of, but I've always been intrigued by it. I should look into the history of this. Maybe I already have.
Can we put it up?
Oh, sorry. I've got a separate screen thing that's showing it there. But I believe this came out at the tail end of like 3D movies.
Really?
So it might be one of those movies that was planned to be in 3D but then cut at the last minute. But during the height of my 3D career, I wanted to do a remake of this because anything that like plays with scale like that can give a lot of good opportunities for doing cool stuff in 3D. But it's just an interesting, weird movie about a woman who somehow becomes giant and wrecks stuff. And Hillary Clinton, even at regular size, is an expert at wrecking stuff. So I figured this was a good poster.
Yeah, it's interesting. The reason I think we both thought that it was a good idea to do a poster bringing up this diabolical witch is that she's come back out of I don't know, it's a closet. I think it's a sub-basement of one of her mansions.
Swamp.
Yeah, and just when Joe Biden's doing an incredibly good job of kicking himself in the ass. I mean, I've never seen anybody in political life who's lasted as long as this really old dude has lasted, managing to be so wrong for so long. But just as he really, I mean, even the left-leaning Axios and the further than left-leaning AP have stories out in the last 24, 48 hours saying that this is just an outrageous week, a pathetically bad week for Joe Biden. And Hillary, of course, jumps in now, and her people jump in, which is the way they behave. If you go and read Daniel Halper's excellent book, Clinton Inc., he has a lot of insight. He did a book, you know, the way the journalists do it, where they interview a lot of people. And he interviewed a lot of Clinton people, none of whom would speak on the record.
Oh.
Because apparently what the Hillary Clinton approach was for the 2007 campaign.
Kill people.
Well, I don't want to necessarily go that far. That's kind of an easy out. I mean, you could torture them before you kill them. But no, they would basically make it known through their surrogates. You know, you're a Democrat, let's say, Jason, and they'd come to you and they'd say, listen, okay, you've been a supporter of Democrats in the past. You got a big checkbook, and we know you like to contribute to politics, and we know you have interests.
This is obviously hypothetical.
No, this is in the book.
I'm saying I don't have a big checkbook or support
whatever.
Democrats.
But they would come to people like you, and they would say, listen, you know, just let Jason know that A, if he doesn't support Hillary Clinton, we know where you live. B, if you do decide to support Hillary Clinton, for every dollar you put up, you can get 25 back. So it's not, you know, not, in so many words, it's not
an easy choice.
It's not a tough decision. I mean, if they didn't know where you lived,
you're right.
That is to say, you know, because let's say you need either access to permits if you're doing movies or something that the government has some control over, and that's just your main business, and you're not going to get out of your main business. they're letting you know you're going to need government, and you don't want the government sort of making an issue of your business, and which is what we do when we get in control. So she started that well before January 20th, 2007. And why I'm bringing that up is that right before January 20th, 2007, the Clinton Foundation, which had been an argument for Hillary Clinton and the Clinton family, was at the receiving end of the bottom of that skirt. I mean, it was in a steaming pile of Chelsea Clinton's expertise area. I mean, it was just everything was wrong with the Clinton Foundation. It had nothing about it legally was correct. Nothing about its accounting was correct. And Bill and Hillary were taking victory laps around the world for all the good deeds that the Clinton Foundation had done. And Bill was writing constantly about how he dedicated his life to public service. And, he wasn't interested in making money. And Chelsea didn't, of course, want any more money. It was a disaster. So this is back in January 2007. Now we see in January 2022, this is a family that has managed to steal money for another 15 years, get away with it for another 15 years. And again, I have no interest in politics, and I'm not saying that because I secretly have interest in politics. I have no freaking interest
I
in
think that confuses people.
Well, getting elected in elected politics.
Running.
I'm not going to run for office. I don't want to serve in office. I don't want any of that. I want my freedom to speak as we're speaking now. I don't want to.
Which we don't have anymore.
Well, we sort of have.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Less than we used to. We
freedom to say things that they think are okay.
No, we say what we want. Within reason. But the point of it is, as you watch in politics, you watch somebody like a Bill Clinton, which is a grisly thing to think about if you think about his political career. If you even read his book, My Life, which recounts his political career from the beginning through about 2001, with the paperback bringing you up a little bit later into May 31st, 2005. Even he admits that his early years as a politician were diabolically bad. He decided, oh my God, he decided when he was in, I think Yale Law School, or after Yale Law School, maybe during the summer at Yale Law School, that what he wanted to do was co-manage George McGovern's presidential campaign in Texas.
Now wait a minute. Because that picture of him drinking Diet Coke with George H.W. Bush, they're talking to George McGovern, and Bill Clinton looks like he couldn't be less interested in McConversation.
No, he was asked and he did co-manage the Texas campaign for McGovern, whenever it was that McGovern got his ass kicked, which I think was 1972. And that, think about the judgment, right?
But wait, when was Watergate? 1974?
So, Watergate began in 1972, but it was fully exposed by 1974. But my point to you, Jason, is that if you're going to pick, if you're a Democrat, remember, McGovern got his ass stomped in the 1972. It wasn't a close call. I think, I forget how many states he won. I think he may have won his home state. He may have won, one or two other states, but he got his ass crushed by Nixon.
So, yeah, why was he even the candidate? The whole thing seems strange.
But why, as Bill Clinton, would you say, what I want to do is I want to go to, back then in 1972, the reddest of red states, one of them, and stick my hand up and say, I'm going to co-manage a campaign which is doomed. Why would you do that?
Well, another question is, why is the picture now not McGovern, Bill Clinton? The picture is buried. I've seen it a million times.
Well, try and DuckDuckGo, but why? So he goes from that, then he decides to run for Congress and gets his ass kicked in Arkansas. He then manages to become Attorney General and does a ho-hum job of that. Then he runs for governor and decides, and wins, and decides as a youngster that he's going to teach everybody, he's the male version of Greta Thunberg. He goes in Arkansas and he gets a team of scruffies around him. Yeah,
Wouldn't Bill Clinton be more engaged in this conversation?
That's not McGovern.
It's not?
No. I think George Wallace.
Oh, Wallace. Sorry, right.
Big
right.
difference.
No.
Large difference.
All right. I was a little kid when these guys were around. I apologize.
That's
George
okay.
McGovern. Okay.
Somebody's drinking Mountain Dew.
Well, right. Let me see what George McGovern even looks like.
He looks similar, but it's not George McGovern.
All right, that was bad.
That's
but
okay.
we got to straighten that.
He looked somewhat similar. I mean,
Not really.
in that they're both white. But, somewhat similar. Anyway, so then Bill, as governor, assembles this team of scruffies who manage, and I think back then the terms were 2 years. He manages in 2 years to, like Joe Biden, kick his own ass out of office. And he then spends 2 years in the wilderness, and then he spends a bunch of time as governor. And I think Arkansas, during the time that he was governor, and even today, distinguishes itself for having the worst environmental record,
Worst
the
education.
worst education, the worst this, the worst that. And Hillary and he were said that they were broke when they left the White House. I mean, think about how poor they were when they got to the White House if they're broke when they left. So, you know, in Hillary, when we think about the smartest lawyer in the world, as she likes to style herself, this is a person, my friend who was on the board of Yale Law School Oversight Committee or whatever it was, died recently. And he told me, though, and he was a serious dude, he told me that he had checked with inside Yale documents that, yes, Hillary took 4 years to get through a Yale Law School program that's a 3-year program, and that she definitely flunked the bar exam the first time she took it. Now, that's...
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, but, yeah, those people who flunk it don't spend the rest of their life saying they're the smartest person in the universe, right? I mean,
Maybe they do. I don't know.
Generally not. And you know the type. I mean, I remember my freshman year, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I had taken the law boards in high school. I did pretty well, actually. And I went with a number of people, one who's today a deputy U.S. attorney in an eastern state near Washington, D.C. And this guy, I'm not going to mention him because I don't want to embarrass him, but he's a very smart guy. I mean, he's a really gifted student. And we all went, a bunch of us thinking we were going to go to law school, to a moot court debate at Yale Law School. And it was Yale versus Harvard or something like that, law school, and the teams went. And at the end of it, this guy turns to me and he said, "Nobody on either team is as smart as I am." But in his case, it was probably true. I mean, he got a Marshall Scholarship. He went to...
But he's an ass.
No.
That.
He was 18 or 17 when he said it. I mean, he was a young, cocky kid,
right.
right? But it turns... My point is that there are people in these schools who determine early on that they're really good at something and decided they're going to spend the rest of their lives focusing on it. Hillary Clinton didn't pick that.
No, she did, but it was just not being a lawyer. It was being a
liar.
Sneaky grifter.
Right.
Yes.
But my point is the difference between when you now we're talking about this a little bit, and we'll talk today about it. But when you were thinking about Trump versus Biden in 2020, right? You had Trump's record to deal with. And it had pluses and minuses. Some who like Trump would say many more pluses than minuses. And then in contrast to Trump, you had Biden. And Biden could sell himself as the experienced hand, the person who knew how to make Washington, D.C. work. And people around him could throw that idea up or throw up saying that idea. And people would pretend they believed it. But particularly in the last month, or maybe 5 months. You know, you think about Afghanistan, trying to sell that. It's hoax after hoax. These people are adept at selling hoaxes, and the Clintons especially are adept at selling hoaxes. I mean, they entered the White House in January of 1993, and they are the most responsible, in my view, from getting us hooked on this unregulated globalism from which they and others have profited in both parties. And Hillary's role in all this, when you look now, and one of the reasons I've been spending so much time getting my own work together is there's so much to read. So many different people, including Hillary and Bill and their ghostwriters, have written these topics. And when you get away, 4 years away from the issue, 12 years, 16, 20 years away from the issue, and you go back and read the drivel that this witch,
new meaning.
That this witch is allowed to be put out around her, and you see her, as Tucker last week just destroyed her by putting actual clips of her with the fake accents
over time.
And this idea that you would go and honestly, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going to guess that most white people don't spend a tremendous amount of time with black people. Maybe they do, some do, but most don't.
Well, given that the majority of the country, black people make up 13 to 15% of the company, there's huge areas of the country where there are just no black people around.
Right, but one of the things that I found actually, and I remember I only went to schools in the Northeast, and I remember growing up thinking that, as some Northeasterners will do, that we in the Northeast, we treat black people much better than people do in the South, and we're this and we're that.
I don't know that that's true.
It's absolutely the opposite is the case. And I found that out talking to some of the people I was interacting with. Admittedly, you're at Harvard Business School, you're not exactly talking to the man on the street that much, but the people who were there, I had person after person, black people tell me that they were really scared to be in Boston in 1978 through 80.
Really?
One guy was telling me he went to a baseball game, people threw glass bottles at him from long distances trying to hit him.
In 1980?
78.
Wow.
Sure, there was South Boston, there was a tremendous tension between blacks and another thing that people don't like to admit is that the major slave markets during the American period of slavery were in New York and Newport.
Oh, well, right, down there by Wall Street.
Right.
I mean, right in front of the courthouse, they have that African, what do they call it? I forget what it is, but it's a monument to the African graveyard of where the slave trade was going on, and they have that sculpture in the ground with the skeleton, with the baby skeleton. It's very...
Right, and it's one thing to just simply say, as Hillary could say, listen, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago without knowing many black people. That's just the way. And then I went to Wellesley, where there were like 6 black people in my class. And so basically, I don't really know that many black people.
But I have some hot sauce if
I
you'd
know,
like some.
that is, it would be like somebody who didn't know any white people and wanted to try to come interact with me and showed up in a seersucker suit or, Brooks Brothers outfits and whale pants and no socks and Sperry topside. I'm
wearing socks?
Yeah.
My God. Yeah. Well, it's like 11 degrees.
And speaking in a Lockshaw, Long Island accent. I mean, it's just, this is no way to behave, whether it's Hillary or actually Biden. That guy, Charlemagne the God, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He is actually pretty astute.
Well, and it was his radio show when I noticed when Hillary said, I have hot sauce. I'm not familiar with that show, but he's one of the, I think it's 4 hosts on a radio show, and one of them is Charlemagne the God. Now he has his own TV show. Right,
but Biden, I think Biden, Charlemagne, or whatever he goes by, his show is enormously popular and has a big audience, and it was a big favor, frankly, to this doofus to let him on the show.
Right.
And then he asked
like an idiot.
He asked a few questions, fair questions, and then Biden's reaction is, the Dementia Joe response. So start yelling at, if you don't know about my record, then you aren't black.
No, if you don't vote for Biden, you ain't black.
Right, to say that to a guy who's pretty black.
And also, who obviously knows the issues.
Right, and remember that this crew here, the two of them, Biden and the Clintons, are both supposed to be political rock stars. I mean, they've been around forever, 50 years in politics. They know heads of state around the world. Biden bragged that he'd spent more time with Xi than anybody else, and my reaction to that is, I'll bet you have. It takes time to make sure those wire transfers don't get lost.
I think The Breakfast Club was the radio show. Or maybe this is the show. I don't know.
That's it. Yeah, that's where he got mad.
Yep. That's where Biden got mad.
And you look at that face. It's the face of an angry, entitled wombat. And look at the other guy's face. He's sitting there saying,
he's just
if
listening.
you were in the same room with me, I'd kick your ass.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he's like 28 or something, or he's pretty young, Charlemagne.
I think he's pretty astute.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just so. With the Clintons, if you've noticed, every single freaking time they get in trouble, they hide behind a black woman.
Oh, he's 43.
43. They hide behind a black woman. All the chiefs of staff are black women.
But that's why Stacey Abrams didn't go. Biden could easily hide behind her. It's like a stick hiding behind a mountain.
The Atlanta Falcons football team could hide behind her. It's a Super Bowl could hide behind her. But anyway, so on the question of Hillary Clinton, back in 2015, and when I wrote that piece for Breitbart, March, whatever it was, I appreciated that what I was doing, and I'm fine for Gordon to say he's not involved in domestic politics. I'm not really either, but I have views that might affect how people think. And look at this, now it's back up to 83,000 Facebook shares.
I just wonder if any of that type of tallying of shares is...
But that's a monster number. If you talk to, I mean, I'm not,
Yeah,
I suppose
no,
I am
it
bragging,
is.
but look at the comments, 17,000 comments. I mean,
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's unlikely that you would have 83,000 shares and 17,000 comments. I mean, one of those numbers is, at least one of the numbers is wrong. I don't think that 1 in 5 people would comment. One of the 5 people who shared. But anyway, and I don't know how many of these comments are all 7 years ago, and whether they've frozen the comments. But when I wrote this piece, I knew it was going to have political implications. I knew that, and I had hoped actually that it would cause Hillary Clinton to withdraw from the race, because the problems were the ones I highlighted in this and other articles were so bad that I just, this guy it's like Howdy Doody has a point of view, and unfortunately he's the national security advisor. But, and look at this, he has how many Facebook shares on this?
2, 3.
Right? I mean, and then, this tells you something actually for an investment guy
Well,
like
it's
me.
from today.
Right, but what this tells, I mean, I think I had 83,000 around the time of the publication. I could be wrong. Well, this just tells you something about the viewership, right? The people who were reading about the Clintons in March of 2015 on Breitbart were disposed to believe that they're criminals, and so they loved it.
Yeah.
Nobody likes this idiot. I mean,
Not on Breitbart.
yeah. So
Maybe his mom likes him.
well, not even probably.
You gotta give her a call.
But if we go back to the poster for a second, and I do want to give credit to the art department, because this is really, we always say this, but I think if we were forced to go back over the 500 odd posters and say, all right, we're only going to select 98 or 100, yeah, and it really just,
Becoming tough, Charles.
you know what I'm saying? It'd be interesting to go and select what we thought were the best of the best. But an overwhelming point here is, and as much as, I just had my recent birthday, as much as I'm inclined to believe that you want to be active for as long as you can be active, this idiot, Hillary, and now forget him, this guy's gone. I mean, he's just
He's almost out of the picture, as you can see.
I think it's almost going to be to the point, where he'll be in a cabinet meeting, and he's going to fall asleep and start pooping in his own cabinet meeting, and people are just going to talk over him and say, "We'll just tell him what happened afterwards." But Hillary is crowding out the rest of the Democrat field, and we could say, well, okay, maybe that's a good thing. But Bill got his chance in politics at 44 or something like that, 45 or whatever he was when he became president. This woman is old enough to be Bill Clinton's mother when he became president.
Right.
And she still won't give up. I mean, this is worse than a monster movie.
But that's her master class on, persistence.
I think
She's the most annoying person in the history of the world. Joking aside, Charles, at age 75, and I'm not at that age, so I can't really say, but I have relatives and have had grandparents and things who, as you watch people progress through these ages, there are age-appropriate things to do. I learned the hard way, when you're 15, don't go driving around in a car. But seriously, we don't let 15-year-old kids drive cars, because even though the body is physically capable of doing it, there's a maturity and there is a responsibility and an awareness of consequences that you don't quite have at that age. And likewise, as you get older, even as I approach 50, there's things that I just would not be as enthusiastic about doing.
Cliff diving on skis.
Stuff like that, of course. Yeah. But also even there were projects where I would sometimes stay up for 30, 40 hours, and I just wouldn't do that.
Right. But just back on her for a sec. I mean, she's, at this age, she'll be 75 this October, I guess.
It's too old to enter into one of the most demanding jobs in the world.
Well, it'd be one thing if this is a person who had not already had too much time in the sun, and had gone from strength to strength. 4 years ago she cured cancer, and last week polio.
Did she have cancer?
No, I'm saying cured cancer for everybody else. Last week she shot a score of 55 at Pebble Beach, which is impossible. and then for fun, she went out kite surfing and jumped
she's
off.
hot off her most recent failure.
Right, exactly. That's right. I'm really bad at everything I do. That's why you should put me in. Put me in, Coach. So
And people really think that that's...
Well, what I'm going to do today, and I've been doing this.
But before we get into the data, we've got to talk about this Trump rally last night.
Okay.
Charles, I was disappointed.
Look, the man doesn't work for me. I mean, he does what he wants.
I mean, I'm just saying, obviously what we're experiencing right now, in my view, is dramatically worse than year 2 of Trump, than any year of Trump.
It's dramatically worse than, I don't know, year 2 of the American War for Independence, for the British.
It's terrible. And the thing is, I have been feeling like, okay, if the election was tomorrow, Biden versus Trump, I would vote for Trump. But I'm increasingly disappointed with Trump. And what I saw last night was kind of like seeing an ex-girlfriend out at a restaurant 5 years later and being like, whoa, dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Because he was off his game. The sound was terrible. He acknowledged Mike Lindell in the audience. So he's down with grifters who are out, pushing ridiculous theories. The reason why I had a problem with that is because I think that there were legitimate claims that could have been raised, and that Mike Lindell did not address a single one of the legitimate ones, and he was championing all these ridiculous theories, and Trump is giving ammunition to his detractors. And he's taking money from a grifter if he's dealing with. He should distance himself from Mike Lindell.
Again, I wasn't able to watch the whole thing because I turned it on this morning and I was watching on C-SPAN, and for some reason, whether it's my ineptitude tech-wise or whether it's a devious thing of C-SPAN, I would watch and then the thing would stop, and then I have to get it started again. I had it just on the side of my kitchen wall or whatever on the phone, and I wasn't touching the thing, and it became annoying for me. I watched it for half an hour. I was struck by a few things. I was struck by the size of the crowd. I was struck by the energy of the crowd. I had mentioned to Janine Pirro that I thought one of the mistakes Trump was making in his rallies was he was going to all these rallies all over the place, and you'll see here it's not white people behind him. Blacks for Trump.
This just seems set up to me.
Well, I suggested that you should try not to. Before it was always blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids and women and whatever. But in addition, I don't know if this was scripted or not. I don't know if this is reflective of the total crowd. Arizona is not exactly,
a lot of black people.
I don't know that it's what the percentage of black people is in Arizona, but I would guess Hispanics are.
This looks set up.
Could be, but the various people that he had one woman come and speak who's running for Congress. She was good. I mean, she was a former anchor, TV anchor.
I might have missed that part.
And she in 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 120 seconds, she graciously interacted with the president, former president, and the crowd and made a really eloquent pitch for Trump and for Republicans. It's really interesting. So, and I take it, I now, because of working with you, noticed the sound more than I might otherwise did, and it was an annoyance. I'll grant you that. And again, I only watched half an hour. I certainly didn't get to the Lindell piece. I wish, maybe he thinks that he's got a winning brand and he's not going to change it. Excuse me, I just got to get some.
It just felt to me like, for instance, these guys with the Blacks for Trump shirts, it says 2020 on it. And I just could not get it out of my head from watching this that it's like, this is old news.
Maybe.
He needs something new, or we need somebody new. I felt like he was off his game last night.
Oh, could be. Well, and the other thing I would say is that when you look at Trump, just as an idea, versus Trump versus Biden, I think he is literally dancing on Biden's grave. He's literally doing that. And every day that the Democrats allow Biden to stay in the White House is a day when they're ensuring their doom, their own doom. I mean, it's just, Trump is off, but Biden is so far off his game. And the Democrats keep him in there.
Well, I have to admit, Trump dancing is funny.
Yeah.
So that's good. I mean, at least if we had a president who was funny.
Yeah, he wasn't wearing a tie last night.
Right. And he had the hat. One thing that he did say that I agreed with was that the exit from Afghanistan may be the most embarrassing moment in the history of the United States.
So far.
Right, exactly. It's only January.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we'll have to see where that goes. But Charles, you've got, I think, a particularly juicy selection of things.
Yeah. So let's, before we get into what you already have planned, let's go into Google for a second. And let's punch in Clinton Global Initiative, Obama, not university, just Obama. And let's find the number of times that he appeared at this Clinton Global. All right, and let's hit videos. And here you'll see he was there in 2014, he was there in 2012, in 2010, again in 13.
Did they do it
2009.
every year?
Okay, in none of these appearances did the Clinton Global Initiative exist. Okay, now my understanding of the way the White House works is that if you want to get the President of the United States to leave Washington, D.C. and speak at a meeting somewhere, there's a certain amount of preparation. The Secret Service don't say, oh yeah, well, why don't you just let us know
Be
on
there
the
in
day?
an hour.
Yeah, I'll meet you on the sidewalk. I mean, they send advanced teams in, and to have a meeting where you rent the Sheraton Hotel in New York City, which is expensive. Typically, you have to go and
A couple months in advance.
months,
Year.
Yeah, you got to go. You've got to put deposits down. You got to say who's renting this thing.
Right.
Right. Where's the evidence that
Certificates of insurance. And
who's going to
things.
pay for this? You know, where's your bank account? None of this stuff. There was none of that
Come
for the
on,
Clinton.
how could the Sheraton give them the thing?
Because I think the way it works is it's like, are you with the grifter team? Oh,
Right this
anything
way.
you want to do. How many hookers do you want? What kind of cocaine do you want in the main lobby? You know, there's one set of rules for that. Oh, are you a law and order Republican? I'm going to throw the fucking book at you. You know, could you please give us tax returns for every person who ever paid taxes in your family going back to the birth of the income tax form? You know, please have that translated.
Well, it was a PDF of
please-
the income tax form.
Yeah, please have all that stuff translated into Mandarin so our overlords can make sense of it. You know, so there's a two-tier system where the laws are on the books and they're tough, and the people who are going to grift using the law want to let you know just how difficult your life's going to be if you fuck with them, and that's where we are right now. And we're going to show you a case in point. So let's go if we can. We see that Obama went down, did no diligence, his people, and had multiple time saying basically sweet fuck all at these various grifter meetings where people get up on stage and talk banalities about what they say they're going to do eventually. But again, it's not charity, it's not registered properly, the forms aren't done correctly, and all this stuff should be wound up. Let's we punch in here at Letitia James and Trump. She's not giving up. Now she's going after the Trump family.
Yeah, she's been.
But if we go further down there to
hay out
this,
of that,
where she gets the money.
even abandoned the run for governor to focus on prosecuting Trump.
Yeah, there's the very bottom of this page. No, keep going. Where'd
You
it go?
all
Yeah. Well, that's images. I don't know if you.
news?
There's a story about, basically a settlement story.
Should I add settlement here?
Yeah. In all, not just news. Well, anyway, there are stories about how Letitia James, I would argue fairly, went after the Trump family for the mismanagement of the Trump Foundation during his running for office. And Eric Schneiderman, the previous attorney general in New York, I think he had a political grudge match against Trump. You know, he had asked Trump for money, and Trump said, "Fuck you, I'm not giving you money." So then he said, "All right, now I'll basically sue Trump University. And that had to be cleaned up in 2016, right before he left New York to go to the White House. So there are two extensive lawsuit or legal proceedings, which are out there in the public domain, where two separate attorneys general wax eloquently on and on about how important it is to comply with New York State charity law, that it's not just formalities. You've got to have actual officers and an actual board, and you got to file your reports, and all that shit's got to do. And while Trump had to pay two separate fines, he had on the one hand Trump University had paid a fine, and another one on his other main foundation. And a difference between the Trump foundations and any Clinton foundations is with the Trump Foundation, it's actually their Trump family money that's coming out of his pocket and going somewhere. And the Clinton Foundation, none of that. No family money actually leaves the orbit of the
it's
Clinton.
everybody else's money coming in.
And if we're going to make a donation in our name, it's going to be with somebody else's money because we're cheap as shit. I remember Bill and Hillary. Back in the day, you were probably in high school, or if not even in high school. The early tax returns for Bill and Hillary Clinton came out in a day where you could take a deduction for any kind of charitable deduction. And this team actually deducted Bill's used underwear to charity. $1.25 for this set of boxers or whatever.
Wow.
Briefs. I mean, it just, this is a team that's so different, in their respect for the law and in their operation towards the law, and indeed their operation towards their opponents. But
when you drop stuff at Goodwill, they ask you if you want a tax document. I never take it, and people say I'm stupid, but I don't want anything for that. I'm giving it to,
right.
And people also say I shouldn't take it to Goodwill because they sell it, and that it's about give it to. They just opened a thing in the basement of this building where you can dump old clothing, and they give it to New York City. So I'll start doing that.
Well, so they say.
Well, and then this thing wants to give you a tax return. I mean, what are you going to do with old clothes other than give it to people? I guess sell it.
Sell it on eBay.
Less walking.
You could just mail it to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, mail Hillary Clinton my old underwear, dirty towels. Here, take it. It's charity. Yeah. Where do I get the money?
Used diapers. But anyway, so I was saying to somebody, initially when we got into this project, silly me, my viewpoint was that if something like the Clinton Health Access Initiative puts out a public copy of their IRS return, that it's the same thing is going to be the case in every state where they put it, and every the federal returns or whatever. So let's go to the Clinton Health Access Initiative is the charity name, just the bottom one. And we'll just hit submit charity search there if you can, and then hit the blue, and then go to 2010-990 line. Guess what line it is, Jason?
33.
Yeah, let's go to line 30.
This is our thing?
Yeah. Now, when you pull it up here, I had initially glossed over. There's a lot of stuff. This is, I don't know, how many pages does it say?
Oh, it is a lot.
Yeah.
It's 46.
49, maybe?
Oh, 49, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so if we go, let's go up a little bit. We're searching for Schedule B, which is a list of their major contributors. And ordinarily, this stuff is not, the identities for, that's J. Is generally not disclosed, but it so happens that for 2010, you got it right there. 2010, next one. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen, and let's print this out before it's taken down.
I have it saved on the computer now.
You're the man. So
Elton John.
No, let's start with this. Elma Foundation. Now, I've never been to the Cayman Islands. I do understand, I believe, why funds are set up in the Cayman Islands. And it has to do with the fact that there are legal systems that are different, traditions that are different. So the Spanish colony and Spanish legal world has a different set of thinking to the French, to the German, to the English, to the this, to the that. And in the Cayman Islands, they figured out a way to harmonize all that so that if you want to do a global fund and comply with all these different laws around the world and traditions, they've thought that through.
Now, let me just ask you, Charles,
Yeah.
is the method of harmonizing it got anything to do with just stealing it all?
No.
Oh, because that would work.
There are allegations that different governments in the past have been connected to drug lords and this and that. But
Let's set that aside.
Well, my understanding, I mean, I tried to set such a fund up in 2009, and before that in 1999 and 2000, and so, I was doing it with reputable people and good law firms, and I had every reason to believe then that is the right way to do it. But you look at this and you say, okay, if I have a lot of money and I'm going to give it away, why would I set up a foundation in the Cayman Islands where there are no taxes? Doesn't make sense, right, Jason? I mean, why would if I'm going to donate money and I care about my tax position, wouldn't I want to set up a foundation in a country where I could get a tax deduction for my donation? So the idea of a foundation existing in the Cayman Islands, to me, is red flag. What's really going on here?
Well, there's the fact that they have a business in the Cayman Islands and they don't live there is a red flag for me.
Right. So the Elma Foundation is pretty secretive, and we'll get to that in a second. We're going to go to New York State and look at it. But then here we have the Elton John AIDS Foundation, Jason. Do you see how much they claim? 3267, if you see that number to the right, yeah. If you could write that number down or maybe highlight it or whatever, because we're going to look up the Elton John AIDS Foundation and see how much money they claim they gave.
What, ProPublica?
But we're not going to do it right away. I want to just focus on this, make people understand what you can see here. So that's a number there that we'll check and see. If that's the amount, here, Chai is saying they got 3267658 from the Elton John's AIDS Foundation, based in New York. Chai in Massachusetts claims they got this number during 2010.
Because he's giving it in pounds and it turns into dollars?
Well, it's because it's a completely invented number. So here we have, this is a very important thing. This is DFID in the UK. This is the UK government. They're claiming that 5.2 million came from that. Here's, as I long suspected, Unitaid.
Wow,
108,
100 million.
108. Now that's less than Unitaid, I believe. I don't think that foots with the Unitaid number for 2010, but it might be close. Here's Bill and Melinda, and I think that number is light. I think Bill and Melinda say they gave more than this to Chai. Here's Norway, and our friends in Norway need to focus on this. Here's 7 million that they're claiming came not from NORAD, which is the aid thing, but from the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 6.882 million.
Why are they giving money? I thought it's the Sovereign Wealth Fund.
It wasn't the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And then if we go to the next page, we see the Australian agency, Michael Smith, be interested in this. Here's 5.57.
That's Downer, no?
He's out of there, but at that point. But then you have the Children's Investment Fund Foundation in the UK they claim these people that they gave 8 million. So, and then here's Dutch Postcode Lottery, which is a semi
fraud.
No, yeah, actually, the Dutch Postcode Lottery is basically in business with a UK company that it makes a lot of money marketing the Postcode Lottery to the benefits.
Sweden had something,
and
like
there's
that
a similar,
also, right?
with the same deal. So. This is the kind of stuff that the IRS has had since any one of these forms went in for the Clinton Foundation. They've had these level of details, so they could do the exercise we're going to do right now and say, let's go take a look for some of these and see what they claimed they gave in 2010 and see if the numbers match.
It's almost like a game show, Charles.
It is. Just find the fraud.
Where should we go?
Okay, so we'll go to ProPublica.
Find the fraud with your host, Charles Ortel.
That's right. Find a nonprofit by all of these words in its name, by any of these words here. Elton John AIDS Foundation.
Wait.
Oh, that's wrong.
Let's just put Elton John.
You may have to do it capitalized, right?
Really? Would it care about that?
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay, let's
go
into
get the
Google.
EIN
I did
here.
it a different way and got it. If we go into Google.
Yeah. Here's the EIN.
Well, we don't need to do it that way. Just go into Google and do Elton John AIDS and ProPublica. Okay, Okay, there you go. Now let's go down to 2010. All right, 10. And let's look at the 990. All right, let's download it. All right, now, if it's up, okay, Jason, what does line 13 say was the total amount of grants for the year?
5 million?
7153017, current year. So what was the number that you wrote down?
It was
3267 something?
3267658.
Okay, so roughly half, 50% of the total grants.
But should it say right in here?
It will, and we're going to be very interested to see what it says in there. But the number that Chai is claiming is 50% of the total grants that the Elton John.
Seems high.
It's a tad high. So if we go down, there's some sideways pages that have a list of every grant. Those pages. So, and we turn them.
Yeah, where's the thing to do that here?
Is it?
What? Oh, it's because they want you to have the paid version, which I've already paid for, but not here.
Well, we don't need to do that. We can. It's tough. Go to the page where Clinton Health Access should be shown. It's all alphabetical, these grants.
There's still an A here.
Yeah. Is there an entry? Here you have Cambridge cares about AIDS. That's
And
17.
then it just goes right to Common Ground.
Right.
after
So
that.
there's no
nothing for
Clinton.
Clinton.
Nothing for an organization
How about
called
the
Clinton Health Access. Let's go to the W's, Jason. See what we see.
William J. Clinton Foundation.
How did you guess? You passed it. All right. William J. Clinton Foundation.
But they only got 500 grand.
Right. And look where it's
576,
based.
55 West 125th Street, New York.
Right, and we've been through this previously and explained that there were, in 2010, there were no articles of incorporation for William J. Clinton Foundation. There were no bylaws for the William J. Clinton Foundation. There was no record that it had this office in Harlem. And here we have a large variance. We have Chai claiming that it got $3.267 million from an organization that is actually saying it only gave $576,000. Now, most time when you're dealing with stuff like this, most people don't say, you know what, I want to be really modest about what I do. I'm going to go and declare in my IRS form that I gave only 20% of what I gave away because I don't want people to think I'm wealthy. I mean, that's just not the way it works.
Well, it's illegal. He's lying to the IRS in one document, at least.
Right. So then if we could get back to that 990 for the Clinton for Chai, unless you've already.
No, that is going to be here.
Okay, let's go further up to like page. Start around page 9. You can do it. And we're trying to find the income statement.
Okay.
And that's interesting too. Look, they say the grants to Unitate are unusual. Yeah, they're unusual because we're not telling you exactly how we did it, why we did it, where the money came from, with no explanation. And interestingly, does that say? Yeah, it says line 1. Okay, let's go up the page. I'm trying to find the income statement, which is here. Okay, let's hit this. You see that government grants contributions, they're listing them out at $137,972,620. I did the math, but the sum of Unitate, Norway, UK, and Australia is $121.5 million. So there's $16.4 million of government grants here that they just say they made with no explanation. Now let's go into New York and see for 2010 the total amount of government grants they claim. And go to New York State Charity Search, Clinton Health Access. That's, yeah.
No, it's better to do this first one, right?
First one. Clinton Health Access, an organization name. Let's go to the videotape. see, for 2010, how many different, there's only one entry for 2010. Okay, let's see, pull that up. This is a form, now let's just remember, where do the Clintons live?
Well, Chappaqua,
Where are their offices?
New York.
City?
Yeah.
What state did she represent?
New York, but this is Dorchester or Dorchester. How do you pronounce it?
Dorchester. But the point is, you would care, if it were me.
That's what's his name's house, isn't it?
It's Ira Magaziner.
Yeah.
The dumbest Rhodes Scholar ever selected. But so here's somebody saying, you're a genius. You're saying, I'm going to make my initial filing for this Clinton Health
and
Access
he's written
Initiative.
right there.
And I'm going to make it on January 6th, 2012. It was a nice try, Sherlock. It was due November 15th, 2011, so it's late. You're certifying under penalties of perjury, which of course these people are happy to do because they know Tish James or Schneiderman, they're never going to go after this bunch of turkeys. This telephone number, 617-774-0110, is SJS Advisors. That's Ira Magaziner's office.
Right.
His consulting practice is in the same place. And we've talked to folks in the past about how dangerous it is to do that. If you have a substantial operation, in theory, a charity, you don't want to run it in the same office space using the same phone number and the same fax number as a for-profit looting operation, which is his consulting business. So if we go down the page here, under New York law, you are required to list out your government grants. There are either 137. Look, this is what they say. Our government grants, total government grants to CHI, 242,099 from the CDC. What happened to the 137 million that's on the IRS form?
Also, why does it look like it's written by a 15-year-old girl and not
Probably
typed
is.
and-
Probably is. But is that the sum total at the bottom? Yeah. So that doesn't foot with the form. I mean, you would think. I mean, I know math for some people is difficult, but if you say on your IRS form, which is attached here, and let's see if the version does have government grants shown in it.
Where will we see that?
It should be in here underneath. The 990 should be there. The audit's there. Let's see if they have the 990. If you have 69 pages, so you probably do have the 990. The audit. This is a disaster, by the way. The audit. But yeah, so
What is this? Not 990.
That's an application.
Oh, e-file.
Yeah.
There you
Here's
go.
your 990. Doesn't say it's the initial return, which it should be, but let's go to the same page, the income statement page, and let's see how many government grants they say they got in 2010 on this version of the form, which doesn't have the, I don't think, Schedule B with it. That's up here. Yeah, 137.9 million in government grants to the IRS, but to New York State, we'll just say a quarter of a million.
Wow.
And
Kind of a discrepancy.
And nobody
no?
says, now, hey, Ira, I know you're very busy saving the world, but 137 million versus 240. I mean, please explain.
Charles, I got to tell you something. It strikes me that it would not be that difficult to create a database
Right.
where if you're at any state
Right.
and the IRS, you say, oh, Clinton Foundation, you put in the EIN, you put in this thing, and the software would automatically say, boop, problem.
Right. And this is 2010, mind you. Hillary's Secretary of State.
Twitter already exists, Facebook already exists, computers are around. What I'm describing could be done.
Electricity.
It's been invented or discovered.
So just to really round it out here, let's go to the California Registry of Charitable Trusts and see what they filed there. There as well, you have to tell about your government grants.
It's no longer Javier Becerra, is it?
Yeah, he's screwing up the Department of HHS, the secretary.
Right.
But,
This?
Registry verification search.
Oops.
Yeah.
I think I missed
Go
it.
down this page a little bit and you get to it. It's just keep going down. Oh man.
It's so badly. Here, wait, if we go.
Yeah, you had it there.
Here, this.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's put in Clinton Health Access and organization name. All right. What does it say here? Clinton Health Access, Charity
Delinquent.
Registration, and Magaziner. Every time you see delinquent, you should think Magaziner.
He is a delinquent.
He's just always delinquent. He's like Pigpen. All right, let's see. IRS Form 990, 2010. Let's see.
Oh, it's still downloading. It's big.
Yeah.
Or their website is slow, or both. 10 seconds.
Wow.
What's in this PDF?
Well, we've seen it before.
I guess their website is slow.
It's California. You know, they're too busy looting.
Exactly. Okay.
All right, so let's go down the same thing. Actually, another thing to illustrate here. If we go further up to page 1, bottom of page 1 there. All right, let's say, Jason, I'm Gilbert Gottfried. In this hand, I've started out with nothing at the beginning of the year, right? I've got no net worth. And then with this hand, I work really hard, and what's my net worth? How does it change in 2010? Line 19. I lose.
Negative 4.8 million.
I lose 4,855,745. So in the world of math and accounting,
That's bad.
well, your ending net worth should be 0 minus 4,8, whatever that number is. That should be, what is the ending net worth shown in line 22?
It's like 15 million.
So it's off by 20 million bucks,
Huh.
right? This is the kind of stuff, and again, this is an unsigned form.
Oh.
You know, so if you had a real exact, no name of the person who's prepared this, of course it's BKD, probably
Wow.
Ernie Skirmy. You know, if you're sitting there and you're saying, you know, I'm not in the business of making money. Okay, that's a tough business. Right? Making money, I'm in a not-for-profit world. I'm in the business of giving your money away. So I want you to understand that I am hopeless at giving your money away. I can't keep track of anything. Give me a lot of your money. I mean, ordinarily and I want to do it. You know I'm based in a shitty office in some backwater portion of Boston pretending I'm a big deal.
But we got a Weber barbecue grill in the driveway.
In the back, yeah.
You're
That's
going to have a burger.
I've got as
cookout.
much Miracle Whip as you might want to put on your ham sandwich. I mean, it's just, you look at this and it's just, this is not a team. The BKD portion, you look at just the first page of this document and you say, these people are totally incompetent. Totally incompetent. And this is something this form has been amended and it's still wrong. This is the only version they have in California, but if you go into ProPublica, it's been amended, I think, 3 times.
I know you think I'm joking when I bring up that Weber barbecue grill, but to me, that was also a sign of like, what is up with this idiot? If I had a barbecue at my office, it would be a nice, kind of like big range and everything. This filthy charcoals and everything. That's good if you're going in the woods, but what the hell do you need that there for? The guy doesn't know what he's doing.
That's right. Well, let's go to the income statement page and see if that's wrong again.
Which?
It's going to be like, if you go, it's like page, there it is. Page, that one, yeah.
This?
Yeah. How much in government grants? 137,972,620. And California law requires that you provide a letter explaining each of your government grants. And of course, their edit is, I'm a fucking magaziner. I don't do that shit. Now, I go in this kind of detail because now for 5 years or however many years it's been, we've done all these broadcasts. John Durham is, I hope, actually conducting an investigation. Here's a short version to say, look, the numbers that are going to come out, they're going to be filed November 15th, if it is November 15th, 2022 for the Clinton Foundation, are by definition wrong, unless you go back and attempt to correct this filing and every other related filing made in the past, and go back and, maybe it's possible, anything's possible, maybe they actually did amend their articles properly, but they have the same doofus who puts these filings in, who says, I'm trying to make the Clintons look bad. So I won't put the real articles out there and the real bylaws, and I'm just going to hide it, like Hillary Clinton style in Watergate. I've got this precedent here, that would exonerate Nixon. Can't let that happen. Ends justify the means. Let's remove that book. I mean, maybe it's possible that Pigpen and a bunch of Pigpens are trying to make the Clintons really unelectable, and they'll.
Didn't they do that themselves?
I'm just saying. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But we will know that Durham and his team are competent if their end result is to go after this, because in this period, this is 2010 and 11. Okay, this is when Hillary was Secretary of State. This is when emails were flying around. This is when Hillary was saying, can't let you see those emails, right? We're not going to put those in the presidential records file. We're going to make sure that any communications having to do with the foundation and my grifting, those are going to be on a separate computer or a separate email.
And she jokes about them. Like, it's ridiculous that you're asking about that. Like, the most dangerous thing they're going to talk about and laugh about and make you feel stupid about.
Right. So now let's go back. This is good timing, I think. We're going to go back and get a little bit into minutia. If we go into the Massachusetts filing, the nonprofit one, that's next to Trump there in the middle. Now let's go into the report. Let's start with 131.9 now. This is a report filed in Massachusetts. And how many pages is this sucker?
It's only 4. Oh, 5.
No. It is? It's only 5? All right, so let's go back and do the second one, not this one. 445.5, that one, yeah.
Oh, that'll be more for sure.
Okay, this takes a while yeah. All right, this is interesting because this one gives a list of all the offices. This is, mind you, in 2010, right? Now it says, for example, when did the organization first engage in charitable work in Massachusetts? January 1st, 2010. That would be kind of hard if your bylaws were only signed on February 2nd, 2010, right? It would be kind of hard if you didn't register with the Corporations Bureau until January 6th. Right, so this form itself is a disaster. But let's go down. Here, you see where these boxes here? Go further up to a few more pages. A few more pages up. Okay, a few more. All right. Okay.
Wow, there's a lot.
Okay,
it's quite a list.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the United States offices, 55 West 125th Street. Nothing registered officially. That's the Harlem office where Bill would be using email. And Hillary and Chelsea and others would be back and forth, Bill's team. And Ira, if he's sending email to this office, there are going to be emails that whoever did the first investigation, Horowitz and the FBI, that was looking into the Clinton Foundation, did they look at this? Why does Chai have an office in Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, why?
Let's actually see where Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania is.
I'm
perhaps it's a fantastic place, but I've never heard of it. Maybe Google Earth or
working on it.
Google Earth, Google Yurt.
70.
But you notice by design, the United States offices.
McCann.
Where is it?
Well, McCann Farm Drive. I'm thinking of, what's her name? What was that little girl? Megan McCann something. There was a little girl who was.
Well,
kidnapped.
there is
Madeline McCann.
The accounting firm for Chai becomes something ends with McCann. That's a common name. But while you're looking for it, my recollection is. So where is this? I mean, what's it near, if anything?
Well.
I mean, it seems like an odd place to have an office.
Let's look at it.
Looks like a distribution center.
Yeah, it's a warehouse.
Is it a rent a warehouse, or is it?
Well, let's go around to the other side of it. Maybe it's offices that happen to have loading docks. This would be the part where office people.
Well, it's got a nice pit out back where you can.
It's weird.
Bleach pit all your. Maybe it's got. I mean, this is kind of like.
I guess it's offices.
Well, what's that address there? That's 107. And didn't it say in the address? It's suite something or other.
Yes, this is 3070,
but then it went on to say like suite something.
Suite F all, Charles.
Yeah, Suite 112. Let's look at 112 there. You had 107, I think,
Where do you see the numbers?
on the doors. There's 107, you see it? 106, so go the other way. 112 is probably the outhouse.
Yeah. We're on a weird, I've zoomed in on it here, so it doesn't like it when you do that. Let's see if we refresh, if something good happens. Now we're in space.
With a magaziner.
Okay, here we go. That worked.
106, let's go see if there even is a 112.
Interesting.
108, 9, a pickup truck, it's logical. 10, 11. Okay, 12 figures. It's it's right next to the tasty cake cart.
Cakes.
Right?
What the hell is that about?
Yeah, and as the FBI asked, what the hell is Chai doing?
What does it say there?
It says Knoll, K-N-O.
USA LLC. That's not them.
I know. Well, maybe I don't know if they're still there.
Pretty updated. Oh, they're not still there. You're saying somebody new.
Right, but we'll have even more fun, Jason. So we'll go.
So who's delivering tasty cakes?
Not many people, I don't think, anymore.
Nobody makes a cake as tasty as a tasty cake, Charles.
That's right.
As far as
I've been
told.
The cannabis version. So
that would be a good idea. They could merge with Weed World.
But let's go to that list of offices because it's quite interesting. So you notice United States offices. Does it list the one in Dorchester? No.
Oh, no.
Then we go down the list of offices outside, and you notice they've got.
Where the hell is Burundi?
Burundi's in Africa, and let's just go slowly. Let's not move it. Each of these countries actually has the pretense of law, and in some cases, actual law. So there tend to be, in the poorer countries, rules that require foreign charities that want to operate in Burundi have to comply with local Burundi law. Now, depending on the origin of the country, it can either be French-based law or German-based or Italian-based or English-based or who knows what it's based on. But the point is, there's something back in 2010 in this form, which is submitted under penalties of perjury in Massachusetts by Chai. They're claiming that they have an actual Chai office in Burundi. To do that, I'm going to guess, and we will be checking this, Mr. Durham and others, I'm going to guess that there were laws in the books that said at the time, if you want to have a charity in Burundi, in Mutanga, Bujumbura, you want to get a local phone number, you got to stipulate, what is this organization? You got to present the articles, present the tax-exempt certificate. You've got to, notify the problems. In a lot of these African countries, on the books, the laws are stricter than New York.
Well, you could probably just walk into a cigarette store and buy a cell phone chip and have that number.
But the point is that whether they mean it or not, that in certain countries, I happen to know something about Tanzania. There, the law in Tanzania is extremely strict on the books. If you want to set up a charity having to do with health in Tanzania, you have got to fill out forms generally about the corporation, then about the charity, then about your qualifications to provide health care. Any deficiencies in your records, you got to notify the Tanzanians, you got to keep it current, you got to have Tanzanian directors. I don't know if the Burundi people have a similar approach. Cambodia, again, I don't know. I mean, here you notice there's no name for this charity in Cambodia.
Phnom Phen.
The no name, this could be get your topless massage over here, and then we'll give you some AIDS
Call
medicine.
it a haircut in Cambodia.
All right. Notice they have an office in China. Now, we didn't get a chance to talk to go slowly here. We had an office in China. I didn't get a chance to ask a question to which I know the answer, but the answer, I think, the question I would have is, in China, Gordon, is it possible that a foreigner will walk into the People's Republic of China and be able to open a charity with no oversight?
I bet China has strict laws.
Very strict, right? Yeah. So checking this out. Now here we notice, this is very interesting to me because this is the first time that I've come across the name of a charity. This is in the Dominican Republic. Notice the name.
Foundation Clinton.
Clinton.
But that's Spanish.
I understand. Now, Dominican Republic likely has laws as well. And so a standard trick when you create an international charity, you want to go to the Punta Cana resort in the Dominican Republic. It's expensive. Stay away from the liquor cabinet. That didn't work out so well for a lot of people. Remember when the people were going on vacation dying of the booze. But you set up this charity. You tell Unite, listen, we're going to help people in the Dominican Republic. Don't send the money to Dorchester Avenue in Boston. Send it directly to Fundación Clinton. And then, boom, you have a bank account in another language. This money, 5 million shows up. Nobody's going to know about it. Certainly Ernie Skirmy is not going to say, I need to go to the Dominican Republic. And because Ernie's going to know that when you start asking to go to the Dominican Republic, you have a chance of staying in the John Glasgow lack of...
Head Foundation.
Yeah, the John Glasgow lack of hospitality suite.
Oh.
So here we have Fundación Clinton.
But isn't it, this is a question. So if you, I mean, some word in Spanish, like let's say you had some charity that was helping some Spanish thing, you wouldn't change the name of the charity to something in English to raise money in America, would you?
Well, again, I think their goal, and I'm not saying necessarily it's the Clintons themselves that are smart enough to do this, but the people around these set of frauds understand that the strategic objective, or just the objective, is to open as many bank accounts as possible in different names and different addresses, and know that if you're going to pay Ernie Skirmy's BKD $75,000 to do an audit, they're certainly not going to fly around the world and check all of these things. And say, is there a Fundación Clinton? If so, when was it created? And where's the paperwork for that? And how did this Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative raise millions of dollars back in 2005 in the Dominican Republic from the government of the Dominican Republic without disclosing? I mean, how do you do that?
Aren't they broke too?
Right. So let's keep going through these offices. Like, I don't know what happened there, Jason. You went the wrong way, yeah. Okay, that's Santo Domingo. Ethiopia, look at this. Kirkos Sub City. Now, I think that has nothing to do
Sounds
with
like a
Jersey
restaurant.
Mike's in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Kirkos Sub City, what the hell is that?
But, I mean, clearly somebody got a telephone organized in Addis Ababa, and we know that a Saudi Arabian industrialist, one of the richest men in the world, billionaire.
I think it's a city. It's one of the sub-cities of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It sounds like a sandwich restaurant.
Well, do you want to punch this into Google Earth and see if anything comes up, or?
Sure. Or do you just want to order sandwiches?
Yeah, I'll take Italian
With a
BMT.
6-inch Yeah. Wait a minute. Google Earth.
Earth.
Where'd it go? I think it's closed.
Huh?
Let's get a new one. So Kirkos Sub-City, well, we want that address.
Keeble 02/03. I don't think that's the real address.
It seems difficult to find. This is one of those things where
Keeble 0203.
if I needed to send something there,
You could just write it off.
no, I'd be on the phone with FedEx for an hour trying to figure out what the address is, and they'd be like, yeah, we don't know.
No search results. Always
That's
a good
what I
sign.
mean.
Let's
Like-
see without the Keeble 0203.
Huh. All right.
It's got something, a Keeble.
Yeah.
Looks like it's built up. Plausible, right next to the mini golf course.
So this is the Sub-City Land Administration.
I mean, it looks to me like there could be something there.
Well, it's a building, for sure.
I mean, it actually looks respectable.
It's a building.
Yeah. All right, let's go then into the next one. Haiti, always, mind you, this is in 2010, right? There's been an earthquake in Haiti. This is period. So they claim that they actually have an office, Juvenat 7, number 12 in Pétionville, Haiti. Again, there's the middle of an earthquake. There's like not much left in Haiti, but somehow Clinton Health Access Initiative has an office here in Juvenat, Pétionville. Yeah, there you go. Let's see what's left of Pétionville.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not buying this.
Well, here's something with a lot of solar panels on it.
Yeah.
Let's see if we
This
can
is
get-
recent, though. I mean, again,
You can't get Street View here.
if you punch in Juvenat, what do we get anything by doing that? Juvenat.
What was the number on it?
7.
That says Port-au-Prince.
That's it, yeah. Let's see what that...
Seems far away from that other place.
It looks like a mansion. Looks pretty fancy. Looks like very fancy. What the hell is that? Maybe that's where all that money went.
Huh. Hey, what is that?
It's a lot of concrete. Is that a swimming pool or what is this?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. We can't really get any...
Okay.
Looks like a courtyard of some kind.
Well, can you go into Google and do earthquake 2010 pictures or something? And mind you, they claim they operated this thing during 2010.
When was that earthquake?
January of 2010.
Yeah, wow. But wasn't the whole place wrecked?
Yeah, that's
could
kind
you
of what
have
it
an
looked like.
office
So I mean, you wouldn't say, I think what I'll do is I'll get a phone and I'll...
It's an awesome rent. You save a lot of money getting an office in
think
there.
of what we could do with it. What we need to do is find an architect who can take that building and do this.
I mean, almost everything was destroyed, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really architecture that could withstand even a minor earthquake. Oh, well, these buildings are still up.
Yeah, but what's left of them? And how secure? I mean, probably a lot of this stuff just had to be knocked down.
I mean, could they have even had electricity running and phones?
They didn't. It depends where this is in Haiti. But so let's keep going through the offices because I'm calling mega bullshit on this filing. Okay, now in New Delhi, okay, there was no above the level of the New Delhi operation. There was no William J. Clinton Foundation, no articles, no bylaws. In America, therefore, there cannot be one in New Delhi.
You should open a New Delhi in Sub City. Serve sandwiches.
And I love this one. The office phone is a landline with 99 lines.
What?
Why do you need 99 lines in New Delhi?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. So here we have in Indonesia, something in Jakarta, again, an office phone. Jamaica, there's no mention of anything in Jamaica in the Clinton Foundation. How did it get into Jamaica? How do you have
Jamaica have a pretty good economy from tourism, though?
I don't know, but Clinton Health Access Initiative in Jamaica, how is there something called the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative in Kenya? It's supposed to go out of existence.
Well, it's just a P.O. box.
Yeah, this is, if you go to the next page, it's in Nairobi. And then you have the same thing in Lesotho, the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative with these phone numbers. Now, if you're John Durham, and the CIA and the FBI, you could go check and you could say,
Call him.
Well,
Is Bill there?
No, what you do is you say, when did they first get this phone number? When did they first move in here? And on what basis did they get an office?
They're like, who are you with again? Yeah. What's the difference?
Yeah, and then here, Liberia, there's no name of anything. And this isn't suspicious at all. In Malawi, a country where we in the past explained that the leader of the country and his family got kicked out of the country for stealing money using charities. Not suspicious at all that in a country like that, no name for this charity, but you can find it at the Kumbali Country Lodge, right next to the single malt bar, and the steak.
What is that? Malawi.
Kumbali Country Lodge. Let's go check that out. In Lilongwe, Lilongwe. Well, Malawi, by the way, used to be very nice in the 50s.
Kumbali Lodge, is that it?
Yeah, Country Lodge or Kumbali Lodge.
This is it.
This doesn't look to me...
You can book a vacation there. Book your stay.
Doesn't look too much like the address of a charity. There you go, Kumbali Country Lodge. That's where I'd go if I was...
It's a vacation place.
A boutique lodge.
$100. It was pretty reasonable.
But my point is, this is not credible as an office address for a
No,
charity.
it isn't. It's
right?
a hotel. It's a bed and breakfast or something.
It'd be like putting in. Where's the best go-go club?
Wow.
In Bangkok or whatever.
Well, you can just send the money to Sandals,
right?
Or you can eat.
Send the money to Jason Goodman's American Express number.
What's the one? Hands up, Club Med. Send it to Club Med.
Right.
That's what this
Nothing
is.
suspicious.
It's Club Med in Africa.
Yeah, nothing suspicious about this.
But also, it looks to me like these rooms would smell like wood that has been too close to water for too long. It's sort of like this was good in 1978.
I don't know, but I mean, it's just completely not remotely credible, right? Now let's go back into the list because we're not done.
Yeah, wow, that's something, Charles.
Yeah. Here we have in Mozambique. Now, Mozambique, the language I think is Portuguese.
Portuguese, yeah.
And here you have the equivalent of the Dominican Republic, Fundação William J. Clinton.
It always sounds like a song when people are speaking Portuguese.
Right. But why? Let's see what Avenida Emilia Daus number 17 looks like in Maputo. Probably the name of the local mistress. Emilia Daus. I think it's D-A-U-S-E.
This must be it.
Yeah.
It's
Giving
amazing.
people a tour here.
Yeah, it's really exciting way to investigate some of these things.
On the road again. Well, this looks like at least it's built up.
Well,
It's probably this building over here. What number did it say? Number 17, Jason.
yes. Well, you can't get street view.
Okay. But if you put 17, does it point you to a...
Oh, it's all the way down the street here.
There it goes. There it is. Let's take a look at that. It's pretty nice.
Obscured by trees.
Yeah, I'm calling mega bullshit on this. And remember, Mozambique is a country where the Irish aid money supposedly flowed in the tens of millions of dollars beginning
These
in
look like
2003.
homes.
Yeah. To be charitable, I'm sure what they did is they had the local manager who could be trusted as, honest as the day is long, dedicated his or her life to public service, rather than paying rent, found a way to selflessly build a building and allowed the foundation to have unlimited access to that building for free. And none of the money that was sent there by the governments of Ireland and others beginning in 2000, none of that money was stolen at all, because all of it was stolen. Then we look at Nigeria. Here, there's only one office in Abuja, which I think is the capital.
And it does say central business. I bet you in...
You're gonna love that up, right? Do you want to see if it really is?
Sure. First Street, Central Business District, Abuja.
Plot 1099. It's really plot 990. Plot crooked 990.
It's probably not going to give us if we go plot 99. Damn it, I can't... It's difficult to remember.
Well, you could do Adamawa
First Street.
Plaza. See that? A-D-A-M-W-A. Plaza. Yeah, First Avenue, there you go. And we're off to Abuja.
Could you imagine if you could actually travel around the world this quickly?
It looks pretty fancy.
Well, it looks pretty remote, is what I'm thinking. That actually looks like a business building, though.
That's a shock. Can't be where the charity is.
It just looks like unpaved, however.
Yeah.
You also can't get...
I'm sure the security is excellent.
But these don't look like individual homes. This looks like...
No, those are office buildings. As a guess.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, I'm not showing it to the audience here. There we go. Office.
All right, we'll finish in just a few more of the office locations. But the point here is if you get together and you're taking money from Unitate and all these different places, somebody should have been doing diligence to say, where in the fuck does this Clinton Health Access Initiative actually have offices? Can we check any of these? Here we say there's a William J. Clinton Foundation in Papua New Guinea, another one in Rwanda, 2 offices in South Africa, in Pretoria and in Gauteng, wherever that is. We've got another William J. Clinton Foundation in Mbabane, Swaziland, Dar es Salaam, And if we look at Thailand, I'm mega bullshit on the Thai office. Where is that?
SG Tower.
Well, it says Raja Damri Road, Pat Humwan.
Bangkok.
Yeah. Yeah. And here in Uganda, they have offices. Then now you have something new in Kyiv. It's different than there's nowhere else is there William J. Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative. It's Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative. I think at one point there was William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative in the Bahamas. But now you have this address in Ukraine. You got another address in Hanoi. And here you have in Lusaka, Zambia, because it's, very clearly in Zambia, which has, the highest standards of ethics and stuff like that. The notion that setting up a foundation, calling it Clinton Foundation, and it's off Dushanbe Road.
Like off Broadway.
Can you take me off Dushanbe Road? Just like slow down to 10 miles an hour and I'll jump, okay?
Right. No, it's like...
in the Woodlands, of course. In
yeah, they have like Saks Fifth Avenue and then they have off.
Right.
That's this, the discount road.
Yeah, and here in Zimbabwe, a country noted for its very vigilant monetary policy and open-minded.
Isn't it known for the guy every year having a ceremony where he selects a new 15-year-old
That's
bride?
That's Lesotho, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Or maybe Swaziland. But no, this guy, I think he died, didn't he? The strong man.
Oh, yeah, no, that was Mugafusu or something? Mugafali.
No, that's a good name, though, Mugabe.
Who was the guy?
Mugabe. Mugabe.
No, the guy who tested a mango for COVID-19 and it came back positive, and so he said he was going to use praying and...
I don't think that was in Zimbabwe, but I remember, you can look that one up. Mango COVID test.
The president, Tanzania, it was, John Magufuli was the guy who died at 61 after COVID rumors. This is an interesting way to put it. He died of COVID rumors, Charles. You better watch out because those are dangerous, particularly if you're the president of an African nation. This is BBC. He died on Wednesday from heart complications. Oh, did we ever find out what this was? It wasn't pericarditis, was it?
I don't know. But let's look into, the guy's is Robert Mugabe, Mugabe. I don't know if he's dead or not.
Well, I was aware of Robert
dead.
Mugabe because there's another guy named Mugabe who got hammered by Hagler, and I remember the headline, Hagler hammers Mugabe, and I was like, that sounds great. But it wasn't this guy.
This guy was
He's
straight
dead
up.
in 2019.
Straight up crazy. I think I have it's either $1 million or $1 billion Zimbabwean dollar bill somewhere. I mean, he just ran that country right into the ground.
Let's just for old time's sake.
Mugabe with an I.
Oh, a little different, but his name is also John Mugabe. I don't remember where I saw that headline. I mean, this was like high school days that this fight happened. But
high school, it says August 1, 2020.
Nah, no way. Marvin Hagler is dead. Didn't he die from COVID?
I don't know. Did he really? We're a little bit off track.
It was Tommy Hearns who made I'm pretty sure Hagler died from COVID. Yeah, no, Hagler hammered Mugabe.
Well, just put it in his name, Hagler.
Marvin Hagler is dead.
Still dead? Without the G? Marvelous Marvin, yeah.
Yeah, he just died in March.
Okay.
Of COVID. Well, but he died, what Tommy Hearns said was, Tommy Hearns claimed that he died from the vaccine, after the vaccine, and if you get a chance to see Marvin Hagler versus Tommy Hearns, it's one of the best boxing matches ever. So it's interesting that they became friends after that, because he beat the crap out of him.
Good. Well, on today's tour around the world, we've...
Quite a lot there, Charles. Excellent presentation, as always, and wonderful information from Gordon Chang. So that's it for today, huh? People are, I did a little walk around yesterday just because I've been locked in the apartment for so long due to frigid temperature.
Right.
And people are like, where's Charles? And it's Saturday.
Well, I want to stay indoors for a little bit. I mean, we might close on this depressing note.
It's too damn cold.
It's cold, and also please understand that any sane person left in New York City, and there are not many of us, takes great pains to stay safe and to look down the street and not get involved in activities that could turn ugly quickly. But there have been a disturbing number of new reports of carjackings and strangers coming out of nowhere and punching a 79-year-old man to the ground. Happened recently. An Asian woman, age 40, was thrown in front of a subway train yesterday. That incident occurred at 9:40 in the morning.
Wow.
So you're beginning to see, I think, more and more people understand. And we've got the snow thing coming at 7 today, in theory.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But more and more people understand, I think, the thugs, that is, that you're not going to get prosecuted in Eric Adams, New York City, let alone this idiot governor we have. What?
So this witness says he timed it. Times Square subway shove witness describes terrifying attack. See, what people don't understand, Charles, is that in normal life in New York City, these are places that you and I would go to without a second thought. And now it's just at any moment you could be murdered there.
Well, remember the first walk around we did when we went to Penn Station?
Right.
Remember they knocked the camera out of your hand, and
it's only gotten worse since then.
It's gotten a lot worse, and people have gotten emboldened. But moral of the story is, if you have to go on the subway, make sure you do not stand near the tracks.
This woman says he was about 3 feet behind her. Cost Weber recalled he pushed her at the same time the train was coming, like he timed it. Yes. Pushed her right in front of the train.
Well, you have to be. When I go on the subway, I always make sure that there's nobody behind me.
Yeah, me too. But I haven't been on the subway in quite a long time, and it's impossible to defend. And here's the guy. Does he look?
Is that who's the rock star who does that? Tyler?
No, that's Gene Simmons on Kiss. But
wait. Marshall, who claims to be God?
Oh.
Yeah. Make him stand in for Biden. He'd probably do a better job than Biden.
I don't think so.
I think so.
I don't think it would necessarily be any worse, but this guy seems completely out of his mind. It's not funny.
Biden you're talking about now? Or?
Yeah. Charles, it's just so damn dangerous. It's virtually impossible for... You just can't go outside without getting into some kind of conflict. And then now all these people killing everybody. It's a terrible situation.
It is indeed. It is indeed. So, but a great poster.
Thank you very much. And I'm thankful to the people that have been with us watching today. I hope that everybody enjoyed that information. I want to remind people that they can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And you're not just sponsoring the show. You get access to a huge library of sponsor-exclusive content. 2 excellent shows on Friday with David Hawkins and John Cullen. Somebody attacked the Fabian-inspired pedo-themed statue outside the BBC and smacked the penis off of the thing.
What, Prince Andrew?
But now, BBC is just, they're not going to remove it.
Never mind.
It's pretty strange. But people who are interested in that, check out the show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great night. Stay safe. I've got some interesting things coming up this week that people will be able to see when they happen.